Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new Gentech PC product showcase. Today we have in store for you a full featured review starting with an unboxing and all the way up into a disassembly of the brand new Aorus X5. This is a 15.6 inch gaming laptop targeted for the higher end gaming laptop spectrum. When we say the X5 can really set itself apart from the other gaming laptops out there, we must wonder what makes it so special. 15.6 inch form factor is very common. There are hundreds and thousands of laptops in that form factor. When we say it's very thin and light, although it does beat many others who are also thin and light, there are still hundreds of gaming laptops that are thin and light. But how many other laptops out there can be 15.6 inches, be ultra thin and light, and also have dual high-powered video cards? If you already knew the answer to that question, or if you took the time to actually go look it up, you would know the answer is not that many. There are only a few laptops that have attempted to do this, and of those few, it's even less for those who actually pulled it off, because when you're trying to put so much power in a small form factor, it can be very difficult to manage the heat and have everything work out well. So is the fate of the X5 to follow in the footsteps of its predecessors and fail as a super high power portable gaming machine? Or does Aorus pull it off and actually get it all to come together where you get the best of all worlds? Well, the answer to that question can be found throughout the review, and for now we're only at the very first step, which is unboxing our unit. Well, there's not a whole lot to be said about the unboxing itself. We have our standard double boxing here, so the outside box keeps it inconspicuous during shipping and protects the interior box. The interior box had the foam inserts on the corners that protects it from any kind of crushing damage or shock damage. And then in the interior box we have our laptop and all of our accessories, where the laptop was protected by a sleeve so it doesn't get scratched up. As far as packaged accessories go, here we have our product information and warranty information, and then we have one smaller package, and this actually does have a unique little item in it. Here we have a USB flash drive that we can use to keep some files on. Once we get that put aside, the only thing left in the interior box for us is going to be the power adapter for charging the laptop and running off of mains power. You'll see that the power adapter here has the low profile, which helps keep it a little bit easier to pack in a bag without taking up as much space. And here's a brief close-up of the power adapter, that way you can see the wattage provided. Okay, we're going to start things off with the system BIOS. We'll do a small tour of the BIOS and show you some of the options you have. Also gives you a quick first look at some of the hardware. There's usually not much reason to go into the system BIOS for anything, but one of the reasons you might actually show up into the BIOS is to look at your RAID configuration and make changes there. Since the system comes with two M2 SSDs, those actually are pre-configured in a RAID 0 array. The data is split and combined between those two SSDs at all times for maximum speed. However, you might choose to run those SSDs independently and not as a single disk. To make that change, you would come into the BIOS. Moving right along with some of the product demonstration, we now have our laptop on a scale. By itself, you can see it only weighs 5 pounds and 13 ounces, which is a very nice weight for such a high-end gaming laptop. As with most other gaming laptops, you probably won't be traveling too long without the power adapter in hand, so if you add the power adapter into the weight, we're at 7 pounds and 10 ounces. That's still a very formidable weight as far as how much weight versus power you have, and also easy enough to pack up into a bag and carry around. Now it's time for us to take a look at the dimensions. We have a penny on the table for scale, and you can see the front side and the back side being slightly wedge shaped, so the rear is a little bit higher up, coming in at just over an inch. While the front side comes in at under an inch. So in all aspects it's very thin, almost only 1 inch thick throughout the laptop. So now it's time for us to start with the laptop overview. We'll look at all of our interfaces and as far as how the laptop looks. We'll start in the front here with our touchpad area. You can see we have a single oversized touchpad with the left and right clicks built into the touchpad, so not separated to buttons. The entire laptop frame is actually made out of aluminum, so there's no plastic on the body. This is a full aluminum frame. And as far as interfaces in the front of the laptop, you won't find any connectivity here. You'll just find your status LEDs, so that way you can see what the system is currently up to. Now as we move a little bit further up from the palm rest area, we'll find our keyboard. This is a full keyboard layout with the number pad and embedded arrow keys. Typing on the keyboard actually feels really good due to the low profile scissor switches inside of the keys, but you'll notice, unlike many of the other gaming laptops, that we do not have LED backlighting. While the backlighting doesn't provide any kind of performance benefit, it usually is something you find in the high-end gaming laptops, and it can be nice to have in the dark sometimes. Now we'll move over to the left and look at our connectivity. You'll see that we have a large vent here for part of the cooling system, and that's going to be followed by a mini display port. Then we have an HDMI output, 2 audio interfaces, one 3.5mm headphone and one 3.5mm microphone, and then a USB 3.0 port. Now moving to the rear of the laptop, we do have a little bit of connectivity back here. We have our DC power port for charging the laptop and running off of mains power. Then we have a DB15 for VGA output, a USB 3.0 port, and then we have the RJ45 jack for the local networking connection. And lastly, as we get to the right side of the laptop, here we have a card reader, 2 USB 3.0 ports, an HDMI video output, and of course the intake slot for cooling. Now we went and closed the lid on the laptop, and we're going to just do a couple more spins around so you can see exactly what it looks like in its closed position. We also went back to that very first HDMI port and removed the plastic protective piece just to ensure that there was a functioning port there. As we move from looking at the outside of the system and now to the inside, the very first place we'll go is the device manager, so we can see what type of hardware we have installed. You'll see 2 display adapters, the Nvidia GTX965 mobile. You'll see the presence of the Core i7 5700 HQ for our CPU. Also, while we're still here in the device manager, we're kind of hinting at another really great piece of hardware this laptop features that we haven't showed you in detail yet. That great surprise is actually going to be the display itself. This isn't your standard 1920 by 1080p resolution monitor. This is a new higher resolution of 2880 by 1620, also known as WQHD+. The panel is very high quality, being LED backlit, super high resolution, and non-glossy, so with the matte covering on the screen makes it easy to view in all the different lighting environments you might put it through. And to top it all off, it also features Nvidia's G-Sync technology, which is a new thing helping out with video games, and where you don't change the frame rate on your video card and end the game, but instead synchronize that to the display's refresh rate. So video game live streamers, we have a really cool feature to show you that you'd find really interesting. That's going to be that we have a built-in capture device on the computer. Of the 3 M2 slots inside of the laptop, 2 of them are occupied by SSDs, and the third one has an AverMedia card in it. Using the AverMedia card with XSplit or other software means that you can live stream your video game without using the CPU or GPU resources, and therefore not affect the performance of your game. The next item of interest is the Command and Control Center. This is a really nice graphic user interface that gives you quick access to many system settings, also opens up availability to some of the Aorus specific features that they built into the laptop. Here, an example of that, we have the macro key programming open, and this is where we can set up all the macros for the G key is located on the left hand side of the keyboard. Now going back to the Nvidia G-Sync feature, we just wanted to show you that this is a feature you'll have to go and enable through the Nvidia control panel. Once you just check the box to enable the feature, it'll start working automatically and help prevent tearing in your games by dynamically changing your monitor's refresh rate. Okay, now the most highly anticipated part of the review has begun, and that's going to be the system benchmarks. Right now we have the benchmarks running in the background, and we've actually pulled out our sound meter so that we can do some measurements on the noise levels of the laptop. The idea here is that we're going to measure the system's ambient noise that it's producing during a load state and an idle state, and then you can take that information and compare it against other laptops that we have previously reviewed. As a net result, you'll be able to know if this laptop is louder than the average or quieter than the average. Be sure to keep in mind that these tests are very much the worst case scenario with the noise meter right next to the source. Also, we're in a very quiet room, so there's no other ambient noise to fight against. So in a real world situation, you would never hear this noise level coming from the laptop. It's just part of our benchmarking process. At this point, measuring the exhaust vents, this is usually the loudest part of the system. Sometimes you can notice that one side is louder than the other, usually because one fan will be responsible for the CPU and one fan will be responsible for the GPU, and they don't run at the same temperatures. Speaking of temperatures, that's actually exactly where we're going next. Now we have the infrared thermometer out and we're looking at the temperatures from the laptop. The main focus on this test is to show you if the laptop has any hot spots. If you've ever seen one of the old gaming laptops before companies really figured out good cooling, sometimes right where your hands would rest would be like a palm heater, and you'd find yourself sweating profusely on your keyboard. Nowadays, most companies get it right, but we always run these tests just to make sure. An ideal circumstance here would be that where your hands will be touching are always cool, and other places of the laptop where venting should be happening, you want to see them being hot. Seeing hot temperatures at your vents means that the system is properly getting rid of the heat. And for the X5, we'll even go the extra mile. We put it on its side. That way we can see what the vents on the bottom of the laptop look like. Now after covering the bottom part of the laptop, we've gone to the rear and we're covering the traditional exhaust vents on the rear side. Okay everybody, our first benchmarks have finished and we've got our results. 3D Mark 11 up first with a performance score of over 10,000. We do have our GPU-Z and CPU-Z information down below, so you can see the full specifications on our CPU and GPU. And then we have our thermal information. Here you can see the CPU reached 97 degrees Celsius on a few of the cores, while the others were a little bit cooler at 94 to 91. Down below we have the video card information, and on here the highest temperature we got was 65 degrees Celsius, on one of the GPUs and 61 on the other. What that ends up translating into is very cool running GPUs. Even though it's a dual video card system, both video cards stayed nice and cool during the test. CPU was a little bit warmer, but definitely not on the hot side. Moving right along with the next benchmark score, Firestrike got 7,858. So that's another really respectable score. Again, we want to check out the thermal information on that test and see how we did. And it looks exactly the same as last run. 97 degrees Celsius on one of the cores, 94 and 91 on the others. Down below, the GPUs. Again, very cool running GPUs and a respectable temperature on the CPU. With a couple of the most popular gaming benchmarks out of the way, now it's time for the speaker level test. And thank you very much everybody for making it to the last portion of our review, and that's going to be the disassembly of the system. Now the X5 is a little bit different than the traditional laptop in that it's not using Phillips screws along the perimeter, it's actually using some Torx screws, so we have to use a Torx bit to take those out. In this case we use a T7 bit, which was the perfect fit for us, and you'll have several screws along the perimeter to remove. And they are varying lengths, so make sure you keep track of those because they're not all the same length, and if you put the wrong one back into the wrong place you could cause damage. Now getting a first look at the X5's internals, you'll see that everything is very well placed and you're using just about every single piece of free space. You'll see occupying the top corners are exhaust fans, and the heat pipes coming out from those, one is going to the GPU and then the other going to the CPU, so they're sharing the load between those. We have 3 M2 slots, 2 of them using SSDs currently and 1 using the AverMedia card for video capture. And then we have our 2.5-inch mechanical hard drive. You'll see at the top center we have 2 open slots for RAM, so that means the 16 gigabytes already installed are on the other side, and then the 2 on this side, the easier to get to, are open for you to put your own RAM into for upgrades. Do keep in mind, however, that while the RAM is easy to access by removing the bottom panel, doing so usually voids the customer warranty, so if there's any upgrades you want to put on your new system, it's best to order it during your checkout process and have us do the upgrades for you. That way all the changes can be covered under warranty. So with our disassembly complete on the system, that means our review is also complete. We hope that you enjoyed our X5 review video. If you think that the X5 is a laptop that interests you, the next place to go is to look at the link in our description to the product page. On the product page you can find the full system specs, also the current pricing and availability. While the product page has a lot of information, sometimes it just doesn't answer the questions you might have, so if you have any questions, feel free to ask us here in the YouTube comment section. That way we can answer your question and also answer for everybody else at the same time. And of course, if you need any one-on-one help, you can always call us or email us, and we're always happy to help you out. So now in closing, we just want to remind you once again, this was Gentek PC, and we'll see you next time.